the good old summertime, in the good old summertime.
Within a couple of years, because of various retirements and so forth, Yorkshire didn't have an opening batsman, but they still did have a good bowling attack. And Wilfred basically put himself forward and said, I can be an opening bat and I can still bowl if you need me. And he went to the top of the order for Yorkshire, became their opening batsman. He wasn't Stanley Jackson or Fry, or he was he could score fast runs when he needed to, but he was very, very effective. I don't think he was one of the prettiest batsmen ever to play the game. But he was very, very effective, and he was so effective that England came calling. They didn't have a partner for Jack Hobbs, and as soon as Rhodes started opening the batting for England, which I think the first time he did it was on a tour of South Africa in 1909, 10, 8, 9, around then anyway. And he was put together with Jack Hobbs, and they put on 200 in 2 successive matches, I think it was. And also what the two of them had was a remarkable understanding of running between the wickets. A real complete trust in one another's judgment. And it drove certainly in that series, drove the South Africans absolutely mad. And drove them to distraction, this kind of running without calling, just quick singles, left, right and centre, which were based on the pair of them being obviously quick between the wickets, but complete trust of one another. If one went, the other went. No questions asked. And once that partnership had been established, well, apart from Wilfred being very successful himself, anybody who was going to support Jack Hobbs and was going to be Jack Hobbs' favoured partner, you would be very inclined to do what Jack Hobbs wanted, because he was so much, at that stage, the best batsman in the world. I think Victor Trumper was slightly in decline by then. So, Hobbs was certainly the best batsman in the world. And Rhodes was the perfect foil for him. I think going back to what I was referring to earlier about his career, about his financial security, I think he saw that it was more likely that even if he lost his spinning finger or his ability to spin or whatever, then he could make a decent living as a batsman. Plus, he did like being on the field. He did like being involved in everything. Yeah. I think possibly being an opening batsman taught him stuff about what other bowlers do. And he would have learned from that. I just think Wilfred learned from everything. Absolutely everything. But he did enjoy it as well. But certainly he was doing, to some degree, what the county needed. He became that batsman because the county needed an opening bat. And then you could go on to after the First World War, when the county had good batting and their bowling was weak, and he went back to his bowling. The Hobbs-Sutcliffe partnership does have more redolence in the sense that it was more equal. I think you could certainly say that, ridiculously enough, that Hobbs said it himself, so it's not ridiculous. He wasn't the batsman after the First World War that he was before the First World War. Having said that, he did score about 45,000 runs after the First World War and was opening England's batting for 10 years. So God knows what he was like before the First World War. But he was a much more attacking batsman the First World War, before the First War. He wasn't Trumper, but he wasn't far off. And after the First War, he became more sedate, let's say. And he and Sutcliffe really were almost equals, I would say, during the 20s. The greatest innings, I think, of the 20s came from Sutcliffe rather than Hobbs. Hobbs was probably the better batsman, but Sutcliffe was brilliant in his own way. Rhodes would never have claimed to any brilliance. I think he was the supporter, he was the foil for Hobbs, but he could get centuries and big centuries too. as he did in that South African series I mentioned. Then later the Australian series of 1911-12, where Hobbs and Rhodes broke the record for the first wicket partnership. Then in the triangular series in England in 1912. I don't know. Yeah, Hobbs and Sutcliffe, they are just names that go together somehow as the greatest opening partnership maybe that England have ever had. Sutcliffe did average, 55 in tests or something like that. I mean, he was a great batsman in his own right. And if you're talking about opening pairs, you like both of them to be good.
Yeah.
And Wilfred was good, but he certainly wasn't in anything like the class of Hobbs. And he knew it, and he said it.